One of the best tours that we ever had, I believe, was the first time to Australia. That was in the beginning of the 80s. We had a number of things that made it certainly great. We had our own plane, our 9 limousines, our own helicopter, as well as some terrific parties. The Australians are a lot of fun to be with. In fact, the parties were so great that we drank all the Dom Perignon there was in Australia. All the champagne in Australia, certainly the Dom Perignon, especially because Ace liked that. We used to load the planes up and have them at every party. In fact, the nights that we didn't have parties, which were few and far between, we'd open Bill's Bar. Bill's Bar became a special event when there weren't any other parties. We'd all feel like we'd have to continue because, after all, once in a party mood, always in a party mood. So I would open Bill's Bar any time there wasn't a party, and I would be the bartender. And then we'd invite people from the hotel or fans that we met along the way all to come and join us at the hotel on the opening of Bill's Bar. The shows in Australia were the biggest that had ever been brought to Australia. We were playing stadiums with one of the largest Kiss shows. The press used to follow us around every day in Australia. We were in the front of the newspapers. There were major events when we first arrived in Sydney, with the mayor giving us the key to the city. We had television stations and radio stations, as well as the top reporters who actually flew with us all around Australia. And there was also some controversy. There was a reverend who had talked about Kiss being the Knights of Satan service, which followed us around every once in a while, and had made a big statement in the national newspaper about Kiss being evil. So we decided to show them that we certainly weren't evil, and that was never really the case. We decided to dress up and go and visit the Children's Hospital the next day. And that was a terrific day. I mean, the kids loved it, so I think we finally put that to rest. We had a promotion guy who was with a record company, and he was a little bit of a nerd. I mean, he had to have his way about everything and kept bugging us about everything and everything else. And so afterwards, I said, we need to relax, and let's make sure we keep the pool at the hotel open late. So you arrange for that. So, all right. And of course, he felt that there'll be women there, there'll be partying, it'll be great. We'll have the pool open late, and so forth. So we were pretty tired of this guy. And Paul decides, well, I'll think of something. And we're back at the pool. The guy hasn't come up yet. He's downstairs at the bar having a drink. And Paul takes a poop in the pool, the old poop in the pool trick. In any case, the poop is lying at the bottom of the pool, and the guy comes in, the promotion guy from the record label, and Paul goes up to him and says, he says, I can't believe it. I just dropped my watch in the pool. And now this guy, whose ego is bigger than all the group together, says, don't worry, Paul. So he dives to the bottom of the pool, and of course, what he got was a handful of poop. One of the parties we threw in Australia was a big gathering in Sydney, and Elton John was in town doing a tour, so we invited Elton to come and join us and so forth. Well, I have to tell you, Elton was having a party the next night. But we were so rowdy the first night, he told the record company after the party, make sure you don't invite those Kiss guys to my party. After Unmasked, the guys decided to take some time off. There was a lot of emotions between Peter leaving and doing the next record or not, and when and so forth. We knew that the record company needed another record, but no one was in the mood to either write one and or record one. As the pressure came down on us to come up with a new album, and I realized the guys weren't writing, or did they feel like recording a new album. And I thought the only person that I knew that knew them well enough and could get us through this was Bob Ezrin, incredibly bright producer who was capable of helping them write as well as producing the album. Well, when we started to think about doing another Kiss album, no one was very much into it. And we came up with an idea, hopefully, that would help us and would get us through this problem. And the idea was to do a concept album. That concept album turned out to be The Elder. Now, The Elder was done helter-skelter. It was really a rough one to do. It was not easy in any respects. The songs were hard to write. No one was in the mood to do it. Bob was frustrated by it. Both Gene and Paul were. Ace really didn't want to do it, and he didn't want to work with Bob. He had an argument over something that had happened in the Destroyer album, so Bob was not his favorite producer at that point. And we started off with the album and dragged ourselves through it, and we finally finished it. And I must say that it's certainly a unique album, but most people don't consider it a Kiss album. We delivered it to the record label, and the record label hated it. In fact, when we first played it for them, they just said, look, why don't we can this album and do another album? Well, the thought of that was definitely not going to happen. It was hard enough just to get this album done. And that was really kind of the beginning of the end, both with me and Kiss, and for a number of things. They had decided that they wanted to take off their makeup. I was certainly against that. I thought that we had spent too much time protecting their makeup legally and through the Library of Congress, which was the first time any rock and roll act had ever been copywritten. Their faces were copywritten in the Library of Congress. It took us years to do that. So when they decided they wanted to take off their makeup and they weren't happy with the Elder, no one was happy with it at that time. So we had a couple of meetings about whether we were going to stay together or not. And finally one day, Gene and Paul walked into my office and said, well, Bill, I think the time has come. And we had talked about everything and how we began. And we wound up actually with tears in our eyes at the end, but we decided to part, that it was the time. They needed to go on and do what they wanted to do, and I needed to do what I had to do.